The fight for 15 rolls on. Working people in 200 American cities rallied this week for a $15 base wage and the right to form a union. Solidarity demonstrations took place in more than 30 cities on 6 continents, following up on previous demonstrations which took place in countries as far-flung as Switzerland, the Philippines, South Korea, New Zealand, and Japan. The fight for 15 matters because the lives of working people matter and because the success of this effort will help strengthen the economy for everyone. But the significance of April 15th's action for the fight for 15 runs even deeper than that. You know, there were times in recent history when observers of our political and economic debates might have been forgiven for thinking that America's working men and women, the teeming millions who built this country and were the engines of its economy during its most prosperous years, had somehow mysteriously vanished from the face of the earth. They were always here, of course. We were always here, even in the nation's capital. You could glimpse their fading footprints in an occasional statistical or economic report, and they, or should I say we, reappeared like clockwork every 4 years come election time in the form of rhetoric. But even then, we were treated like offstage characters in a one-act play, unseen and unheard, there only to be addressed by the principal actors in loud, declamatory tones. Now, the employees in Fight for 15, which describes itself as a coalition of, quote, fast food cashiers and cooks, retail employees, childcare workers, adjunct professors, home care providers, and airport workers, end quote, were still among us, of course, through all of this, teaching our children, providing us with goods and services, helping us return home after long days of travel. But as far as political insiders were concerned, they had no lines of dialogue in the drama of their own lives. Now, unions have been struggling against anti-labor rhetoric and hostile state laws, indifferent regulations, weakened support in Washington for generations, and that's contributed to this problem. That's contributed to what was a long-term period of political invisibility for the middle class, and along with the political visibility came plunging fortunes of the middle class, or if we dare use the words, the working class of the United States of America. After decades of growing inequality and a recession caused by Wall Street fraud and recklessness, think about it. How much of the post-crisis recovery do you think went to the top 1% of Americans? The answer, all of it. And yet, in a few short months, a few years back, the Occupy movement began shifting the national dialogue away from the faux centrism of corporate-friendly Washington insiders and back toward the majority. That demonstrated the power a mass movement can deploy against an insular political system. The fight for 15, born of a handful of fast food workers, but growing quickly, has the potential to be the same kind of movement. In fact, the change has begun. This struggle matters economically, it matters politically, it matters socially. We must fight against the corporate world's ever-evolving techniques for diverting wealth from the rest of us, whether it's permanent part-timeism, rampant wage theft, or the other games that they play in order to technically evade the regulations protecting workers. Now, everyone, whether they make $15 or not, is affected by the state of today's workforce. When the economy gets better, which it does when people earn a living wage, we all benefit. We also need a change in social consciousness so that we all ally ourselves with the men and women of the fight for 15 movement. Beyond that, it is also important to remember that as our world continues to change, we will face new challenges. We'll need new movements, new alliances, and new ideas. We need movements of labor, movements of people, movements of the once vanishing worker to restore all of us, our friends, families, and our neighbors, to central stage in the American political drama. I'm Richard RJ Eskow for the Zero Hour.